time begins what may be a perilous journey to a place where conditions for the disabled are among the worst in the world. Randy Shandoval explains.
Bruce Curtis armed himself for a hellish trip today. He went to the bank to load up on small bills. He packed trinkets and over-the-counter medicines to use for barter. Tomorrow, alone, Bruce Curtis travels to the heart of chaos, Russia.
Disabled people in Russia right now are pretty invisible and are at the very bottom of what is a desperate situation socially in Russia.
Curtis will travel to Russia as a representative of Oakland's World Institute on Disability, a kind of think tank for the disability rights movement. Members say as tough as it is for the disabled in the United States, it's worse elsewhere.
The conditions of disabled people are really deplorable all over the world. They are literally the poorest of the poor.
And being the poorest of the poor in Moscow right now is mighty poor indeed. Here, the disabled are treated as an embarrassment. Disabled activists say there are no accommodations, no ramps, no lifts. In fact, there are hardly any wheelchairs.
Disabled people have been kept at home. They've been kept in apartments, and they don't even leave their apartments.
Curtis says he will meet with members of a Russian society for disabled persons. He hopes to teach them to become effective advocates for their own people. Right now might seem like a peculiar time to push for disabled rights in Russia. The country's in chaos, the economy's a disaster, and there are fears of yet another coup attempt. But members of the World Institute say it's the chaos that's presenting a rare window of opportunity.
While the plans are being made now for what the new Russia will look like and what it will be like in terms of a society, in terms of laws, in terms of economy, this is the time to plant the idea about an integration of the population, of integrating disabled people into the economy, into the education, into society, into the infrastructure.
True, most Russians are too hungry and too frightened to worry about the rights of others, but the new Russian society is taking form right now. Once it sets into concrete, it might be too late. Bureaucracies, even new bureaucracies, seldom change. Randy Shandoval for the 10 o'clock news.
This is the first time that Russians have seen a wheelchair used in dance. 4 Americans have brought the art form to dancers and leaders of Russia's disabled movement. By low estimates, there are 8 million disabled persons in Russia. Astoundingly enough, the country has only 2 motorized wheelchairs. In the last 10 years, there has been little success in fighting the stigma attached to the disabled. As the dance brings the wheelchair into the spotlight, the performers are hoping city leaders will do the same. The performers have come to Moscow to encourage disabled citizens to take to the stage as well as to the street. This is a difficult task in a country which has historically forgotten its handicapped. Moscow has few access ramps, dangerous roads, and elevators which are physically prohibitive. And again, as the disabled made their way to the performance, they met a familiar obstacle. The building was so ill-equipped that access ramps had to be carted in. Alexander Lomakin is the chairman of the All-Russia Society of the Disabled. He and his American counterparts are working toward integrating the disabled into society.
I think that as we have a lot of difficulties in our life, like theft, for example, for us it's easy to struggle for our rights.
Of those difficulties, one is financial. The minimum pension allocated to some disabled persons is the equivalent of $8 a month. A political fight is also underway to pass a national law on disability allowing for equal employment and government benefits. Despite the hardship, many are pleased about what is happening in Russia. American dancer and political activist Bruce Curtis is one of them.
It is hard for everybody here in Russia. It is hardest for the disabled who are at the bottom of society here. But they are struggling. They work here. They struggle here. And they perform and they create and celebrate here. This is life, and I have a lot of hope for where this country is going.
Amy Ross, NBC News, Moscow.
Disability is celebrating its 10th anniversary at Kaiser Center. 10 years of working to improve the lives of the disabled all over the world. Their most recent effort was in Russia last month when they sent a group to Moscow.
This is our hotel we're staying in, and the wind's blowing and it's cold as hell. Here's our bus that picked us up at the airport, the Sputnik.
This is home video taken of the trip. The bus they had, the only one in the whole country equipped with a wheelchair lift. Bruce Curtis, who headed the Russian project, told me what it's like for the disabled in Russia.
There's no accessible transit that in Moscow, anywhere in Russia. The whole society has not dealt with the issue of access for people with physical disabilities. The more severely disabled people are in their homes and don't leave them, or they're in institutions. The idea of actually integrating disabled people throughout society is just now being talked about, and just barely being talked about there now. So that's a good 20 years behind.
It was to try and speed up the integration of the disabled that motivated these 2 weeks of meetings with some 50 representatives of the disabled community from all over the country. Meetings that Curtis said were very different than the Russians are used to, because everybody got to take part.
So everybody's voice was heard. This was totally unusual for them, but they loved it, and within a couple of days they were enthusiastic about going into these small groups and participating, because everybody felt like they were being listened to and participating, and it was very well received.
The group also made an impression when they went out among the people.
When you see a group of severely disabled people like us all in one spot at one time, it's very surprising for the public at large. So there was a lot of amazement in seeing us, a lot of curiosity, a lot of people coming up and giving friendship gifts. They'll give you a pin, a little medal, something, whatever that even if they're selling them, they'll give you their goods off the, it's just a way to be friendly. There's a lot of goodwill there.
Curtis says the trip was a major success. In fact, they're going back in August. In the meantime, 25 disabled advocates from El Salvador are now in Oakland for training at the World Institute on Disability's headquarters there. And they have a rough row to hoe. Last week, the disabled demonstrated at the President's Palace in San Salvador. They say police opened fire on them, killing 3, wounding 15, and arresting 30.
I can't get into Lennon's too. It's inaccessible.
Эд Робертс, президент Всемирного института инвалидов, американец, 54 года, разведен, имеет сына 15 лет.
I have a wonderful story. I was a young athlete, and then at 14 years old, I had polio. And I went from an athlete to a helpless cripple in a few hours. It was devastating. I thought I wanted to die. And every time I asked anything, what would I do in the future, I was told I had no life. I would be a vegetable.
Образование было дорогой к моей свободе, говорит Эд. Сначала он пытался умереть, отказываясь от еды. В течение 5 лет он находился в полной изоляции. Потом понял, что у него нормальные мозги, и стал развивать себя сам. Эд Робертс имеет степень доктора политических наук. Сначала он учился, а потом и преподавал в университете Беркли, Калифорния. Несколько лет назад он оставил преподавательскую деятельность, чтобы стать политиком.
We began to organize. We began to get involved in what we call the independent living movement, which I helped start. And the first independent living center was in Berkeley, California. Now there are 500 all over the world. And the philosophy was we can help ourselves. We may need some other kinds of help, but the most important kind of help we can give is to each other on a peer basis. Everywhere in the world has the same old attitude. Everywhere, I mean, I have met so many old Russian women who feel so sorry for me. And they're beautiful, but I don't need that in my life. I don't need that. It's tough enough to live and survive. All of us have trouble. And what I need is people who are optimistic and who help me think of ways I can live my life. and do things, help others. The best thing I ever did was to reach out and to help somebody else.
Эд считает, что в каком-то смысле это должно было с ним случиться. Он должен был посвятить свою жизнь помощи другим людям. Но сначала он должен был многому научиться сам. И прежде всего, опять научиться любить себя. На это ушло 10 лет.
That's a very important thing, and we never talk about it. Our sexuality and our need to be married and have children and be just like everybody else. Because we are. I was just like everybody else before, and I still am. And I have the same desires. I want the same things. I want to work. I want to play. I want to live my life and make choices that I want to do. And that's what this movement is all about, is to welcome people back into society. We are fighting for our rights, and it doesn't matter if you're in Russia, or if you're in Brazil, or if you're in the United States. The issue is still the same. We are fighting for our place in the sun. And it's a wonderful struggle. And it gives us strength. And in the process, we will change ourselves, and we will change this world. We will change Russia, and we will change attitudes here in Russia, because it's the old attitudes that are our worst enemy. And then we will change buildings, and we will change transportation so we can be a part of the system. Because there are millions of us. The United Nations estimates that there are at least 600 million people with disabilities in this world. And our voice is just beginning to be heard. It's exciting. I live every day.
Disabled activists from Russia in the United States to learn.
This is good, okay? This is good. No, never. That way. Go that way.
The activists, members of the All-Russian Society of the Disabled, say their homeland doesn't have very many accommodations such as wheelchair ramps. In fact, they say access for the disabled is a major problem there. So the Russians are spending a month in Berkeley, California, meeting with American activists from the World Institute on Disability.
One of the things that I'm really amazed about is how people with disabilities are really integrated into society here.
То законодательство, которое see that the laws are really working and that the disabled peoples are really treated as a normal people of the society. They're integrated into the society. And this is what we really want to have in Russia.
But the activists say change won't come easily. Under the Soviet Union, the government took care of the disabled, but also hid them away. So they say to many Russians, the disabled are people to be pitied, not necessarily respected. And they say that even if Russia passes laws similar to the Americans with Disabilities Act, officials don't always enforce the laws that are on the books. The American activists say fundamental differences make it hard to translate the American experience into Russian society.
Change the structure of society, then you see the behavior start changing. That's the model we work with here. It isn't going to work the same way in Russia. We'll have to probably change more attitudes there first.
New attitudes and new equipment are all part of what the Russians are studying while they're here. Craig Heaps for CNN, Berkeley, California.
Bay TV, your TV. A contingent of 20 disabled advocates from Russia are in the Bay Area, guest of the East Bay's World Institute on Disability. They're here to get a taste of life for the disabled in America and to learn from them how to improve life for the Russian disabled community. One of their first stops was today at the Grand Mar wheelchair rental store in Emeryville. Most disabled Russians have to get by with canes, crutches, and braces. Wheelchairs are few, never more. Society without ramps or curb cuts, the disabled can feel even more trapped in a chair. Every individual in the group was amazed at the variety of the mobility aids in the U.S. and also how much they cost.
This one, $1,000 more.
Это на $1,000 больше стоит.
This one, $2,000 more.
Это на 2000 больше стоит.
Also $2,000 more.
They even got a look at a battery-operated reclining wheelchair with a price tag of $8,000 and a demonstration also of speed.
In this one setting, I am now going to go full speed forward.
Я сейчас поеду вперед, а вы вырастите скорости на этом одном настрое.
Okay. Dangerous.
Очень.
This group will also be experiencing staying in an accessible hotel, traveling on accessible public transit, and a lot of other experiences that right now simply do not exist for them in Russia.